Hello, bike farmers. So a lot of you have been mentioning in the comments that you want to know a little bit more about how I choose the bikes that I flip and how it all works. So that's what this video is going to be all about. This is a bike I picked up on trade not too long ago. Customer reached out, said their kid outgrew their mountain bike and needed the next size up. I said, great, bring it on in, let's take a look. First thing I always ask is, what do you want for it? And 9 out of 10 times they say, I don't know, you tell me what it's worth, which is always a very, very difficult thing to answer. Everybody has a different idea of what these things are worth. What I do know is what I sell them for. So a bike like this, it's a 26-inch bike with disc brakes, a front shock, and it says Trek on the side. Now, really cleaned up in good condition, I can get $400 for this bike. More realistically, I'm thinking $350. Now, a friend of mine told me a while back to use the 1/3 rule. What's 1/3 of $350? About $120. So I would say 120 bucks is a pretty good trade-in value for a bike like this in my market. Now there's a little bit of a wiggle room there, but that's kind of a starting point. The very first thing I look at is gonna be tires. And I check for bald spots, especially on kids' bikes, because you know they're skidding. And of course, this one's got a really good bald spot right here. And I can see right here on the front one. So new tires right off the bat. The other thing I look at is saddles. I don't sell a bike with a tear in the saddle. It's like the first thing that people notice. There's something about a ripped saddle, but nobody's gonna buy a bike with a ripped saddle. Grips are not a big deal, but I always look, you know, they're spinning on the handlebars and kind of worn, so this one's gonna get new grips. I think these blue pedals are absolutely hideous, so I'll put some new pedals on. If you put on new tires, new grips, new pedals, and new saddle, all new contact points, and this thing's gonna pop. One thing I noticed on this bike that I don't really like are these older disc brakes. Now, disc brakes sell bikes, but older Hayes disc brakes can be a little tricky to work on, a little tricky to bleed. Just whenever you have older disc brakes, you run into the situation where you might have to get parts, and I hate having to order parts and have the bike sitting around half fixed. It's just such a big pain in the ass. I don't like dealing with it. One of the very first things I do is I squeeze the brake levers just to kind of feel the brakes. This one feels a little weird over here, but all in all, for older hydraulic brakes, they feel pretty good. Another good thing to check is the chain. Have yourself a chain checker tool. This is kind of like checking the blood pressure on your bike, and this one's good. So we don't have to replace any drivetrain parts. That's a good thing. When I'm dealing with the customer and they just ask me off the cuff, I can just kind of take a look at a few things and then just the overall condition of the bike to know approximately how much this thing's gonna cost me to refurbish it. But knowing the tires and finding a bald spot is always a good negotiating point. You know, say, well, I think I could offer as much as 150 bucks for something like this if it's really clean, but it's gonna need some new tires. I gotta put a new saddle on it, grips, all that adds up. How about 100 bucks? 9 out of 10 times they're gonna say, great. This time I said, how about 100 bucks? And she's like, I was thinking more like 150. I was like, okay, how about 120? And she's like, sure. So we agreed on 120 for this one. 120 is right in the ballpark of that 1/3 rule. I think I'll be putting on $30 worth of tires, $20 for a saddle, 10 bucks for the grip, so 60 bucks. So I'll be in 180, probably 200, plus an hour of my labor. If I sell this bike for 350 bucks, I'm doing all right. I really don't even like to put a bike in the stand unless I know I'm gonna make 100 or 150 bucks on it. So that's the economics. Let's get started. I think it's important to note that I am a bike shop. I carry a major brand. I'm insured. I'm incorporated. So I'm a legit used bicycle shop. That's why I can get these prices. I'm not comparing the prices I get for bikes for what you can find on Marketplace or Craigslist. Reconditioned used retail is a totally different game than what you're buying from private party. I figure people are gonna spend 100, 150 bucks on a tune-up for anything they buy on Marketplace anyway. And then if they're buying from me, they're buying from an expert who makes sure they're getting the right thing. Anyone who's been watching the channel at all knows that my reconditioning can be broken down into 3 main steps: cleaning, lubing, and adjusting. One thing I'm noticing right out of the gate is there's no luster to these rings or this crank or anything. You can take this furniture polish. I get the cheap stuff. Just spray it and leave it, and it'll soak in, and then that'll be shiny in a little bit. These 9mm nitrile gloves from Harbor Freight are fantastic, and you can reuse them. I mean, these might last this whole bike. They might last me all week, up until I tear them on something. But they're really durable. Big fan. All right, the initial wipe looks good. I think this thing's ugly. So it felt like this cable wanted to be cleaned and lubed and replaced. Just wasn't slickered and snot on a doorknob, and I like them to be. This is full housing all the way up to the lever, which I think is a double-edged sword because, yeah, this cable is frayed right there. It's gonna be really tricky to get this thing all the way through that housing, through this ferrule again, if I pull it out. So I think I'm just gonna replace it with a new cable. I don't do this very often, but I'm doing it now. So I'm gonna trim closer because that'll come out way slicker, then I won't get any frayed material inside that housing either. The cable is gonna come right out of here. This little plastic screw comes out. Oh, dropped the screw. There's your cable. There we go. Take my piece of housing here and I'm just gonna get some lube. Ooh, that's slick. All right, these cable guides are an issue. Not a big one. We just have to re-zip tie them. Got a few cosmetic issues here with the paint. I'm gonna use some goof off. Just, oh yeah. That helped a lot. And then again, that kind of made things dull. Just spray it with the polish and let the polish sit. Give these wheels some attention here. So it looks like we got a Presta valve, and it's a Presta valve bike. I don't know, generally speaking, if you got somebody that's wanting to buy a bike for 300 bucks, they're not gonna want Presta valves, but I always leave them. I can bore that out and make it a Schrader. It's actually something that I should probably start doing to all the bikes. Presta valves are a problem in my life. You know, I like selling decent bikes to regular people, but regular people are completely baffled by the Presta valve. So I have a reamer. This is how I do it. I suppose a drill would work. So after I remove a little material, I check to see if a valve fits through. And it's barely coming through here, but the rubber part isn't. Hit it from the other side here, which is trickier because the spokes are in the way. Anyway, that's a weird angle, but you get the picture. It's way harder to get at from this side. Take my rat tail file, grind some edges. Check your tire orientation. Make sure things are pointing the right direction. There, now we got a Schrader valve. Let's clean these wheels and check the rims for true. This one's really straight. Not a lot of time or effort needed there. Take this little wobble out of the wheel. That looks good. All right. This hub feels a little loose and a little dry. I'm gonna open it up, squirt a little lube in there, and then adjust it properly. Let's smush some grease down in there, good and gunky. Yeah, that's way better. Way better. I like it. That's another reason I don't like disc brakes, especially with quick release wheels, is that rotors are really never in the same place twice. You're always having to readjust the caliper. So the hydraulic part of these brakes feels good, but the levers are a little crunchy. So I'm just gonna squirt some one step up in there, and yeah, it feels way better. Oh yeah, the pivots were just all dried out, but those brakes feel good as new. Yeah, so we've got all kinds of rubbing. Make sure the wheel's in straight, skewer's tight. Okay. So I just loosen up the bolts a little bit, and then I'm squeezing the caliper, and that theoretically will center the caliper on the posts. Now I'm just gonna go finger tight back and forth just a little bit. I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure on these. gonna work it a few times. It's rubbing just a little bit. I think it's good enough though. So now we'll tighten these guys down. And that always moves things a little bit. Man, it's just barely rubbing. So I'm looking straight down through there to find where it's rubbing. And I'm just gonna, that's quiet. I did it. That was easy. Ish. It's not always that easy, folks. Here's the front one. It's pretty quiet. Leave well enough alone. You can see how those chain rings are nice and shiny. Put some pedal washers on. These are new pedals. Ooh. Just a little one step in these shifter pods. Cheapo hairspray. The front derailleur cable is feeling pretty grimy too, so I gotta pull that one out and clean it. It's the same deal. Yeah, there's corrosion right here. Wonder how that got in there. All right, through the shifter. Then into the housing, feed it through. It's going through real clean. Came through on the other end clean. Slicker than snot on a doorknob. That's what we want. Don't forget that little plastic screw back there. So with two new cables, the front one's really close. Got a lot of rubbing in the small, and we expect a little bit of rubbing. Okay, so middle and small it's rubbing, so I'm gonna tighten the cable with the barrel adjuster and the handlebars. It's a little better. There we go. That's acceptable. Check the granny gear. Looks to be about right. Things are straight, that looks good. All right, that rear cable is loose. I'm using the barrel adjuster on the lever right now to tighten that cable a bit. Clean, lube, then adjust. I forgot to lube it. Always helps to lube it. Okay, let it come down, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna check that hanger. A lot of you guys are commenting, just check the hanger right away in the beginning. It's probably a good idea. Can't believe I haven't learned my lesson after all these years. That's... Oh. Okay. I just broke it. Oh, I hate it when that happens. There's so many different kinds of hangers too. I found one here that looks like it might be close. Maybe I'll get lucky today. Otherwise, we have to order one. That is really dumb. I had to rob one off my son's bike. But that's okay. Because he just turned 16 and is driving now, and if he's anything like me, won't ride a bike for 3 years until he gets to college and has to get around. I just order them on Amazon. It's so much easier, and I always order 2 and then throw one in the drawer. I got a bunch of the regular Trek ones, but this is an older bike. Frustrating, but we're out of the woods, as they say, unless I do something dumb again. Oh boy, gonna have to adjust the brake now. This is why I don't like disc brakes, folks. All we did is take the wheel off and put it back on again. I got the skewer set, the same tension. I do it pretty much the same every time. Shouldn't make that much of a difference, but for whatever reason it does. I know, like with through axles, it's fine. It's just fine with through axles. But with quick release, they just shouldn't even make them. You have to do this exercise just about every time. You know, they're gonna howl and cause me all kinds of problems. I know it. Ugh. Let's recheck that indexing now. Little sluggish right there. I'm gonna tighten the cable a smidge. There we go. Gonna have to find a happy medium. Yeah, it's loosening up. There just might be some grit and grime in that derailleur. We have ourselves a tuned bike. It's been reconditioned. A couple new cables, new tires, new grips, throwing on a new saddle quick. Good spot for creaks. Nice to just throw some lube in there to prevent future creaks. Everything's shifting, the brakes feel pretty good. Good enough at least where I don't have to bleed them, or you know, pads look okay. I think we got ourselves a bike. I guess I'm not sure if I mentioned that I'm doing this bike because I had a mom reach out. Her 11-year-old needed a bike for bombing around town with his friends, and I think this one's perfect. It'd be a Christmas present. You know, I sell at least a bike a day during the bike season from my little shop. My little town is 10 miles south of Trek headquarters, so anybody who's really into cycling in this town is generally associated with Trek. Everybody's riding Treks that they get from their neighbor who's an employee and whatever. Trek is a very strong brand here. It's a very strong brand everywhere. I have nothing against Trek, but it makes it hard to have a cycling store. So that's why I have a bike shop, and I do used bikes for people. I say I try to give regular people bikes. The Trekkies, as they're called around here, can handle all the enthusiast level stuff out of their garages. That's my biggest competitor. But anyway, I think I do pretty well. I sell at least a bike a day during the bike season. In the spring, it's 2 or 3 a day. New and used. I have some Saturdays that are really good. And then I do a bunch of tune-ups every week too. And you know, like I said, I try to make 150 bucks a bike, and it's enough to make a living. This one's ready to go. I'm gonna give it a quick test ride. And there we have it, a reconditioned shop quality used bike ready for sale at Gibbs Bike Shop in Lake Mills, Wisconsin. It's always nice when I kind of have a buyer lined up. I don't know, we'll see if she comes through for it. If not, I'm gonna take it and put it in with the rest and we'll sell it in the spring. This one will go fast. These smaller used mountain bikes just get snatched up right away by the kids. Thanks so much for watching this far. If you like this and want to see more content, you got to support the channel, and you can do so by clicking on the buttons. And especially click that notification bell so you and your bike can stay tuned.